What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back. Today we are flying the Su-30 Codename Flanker mod with a brand new flight model, and we are doing a thrust vectored fight against my friend. I'm flying the Su-30SM, he's flying the Su-30MKA, and as I've mentioned before, he is a real active NATO fighter pilot, and he flies a 4th generation fighter in real life. I can't really reveal his identity, so you'll have to respect him on that. And today it's going to be his first ever attempt flying a thrust vectored machine in DCS World, and it's going to be my first ever attempt at dogfighting in the Su-30, although I've got plenty of seat time doing airshow displays in this thing, as you can check out my previous videos. It's going to be interesting to see if my extra seat time in the Su-30 with thrust vectoring is going to give me any sort of advantage against my friend who is a real fighter pilot.
We have 2 good engine starts. You're clear to disconnect the headset. We'll see you on the left with the pin. Thanks a lot.
Okay, before we get into the actual fights from the cockpit view, there's a few disclaimers we need to get out the way. First of all, this is a new flight model for the Su-30 Codename Flanker mod. It's currently unavailable to the general public, but it will become available in the very near future, I believe, with one of the future updates planned for the Su-30 Flanker mod. So stay tuned for that. I just have early access to the flight model. There are some certain improvements to it for sure, including the profile drag, which is probably the biggest one. There's still definitely massive shortcomings, and I would like the devs to have a look at some of the scenes that I'm going to show at the very end of this video, showing where the flight model and the physics really break down. And I'm not really sure what's causing it, but it really needs to be improved. In some cases as well, the Su-30 doesn't seem to lose its energy as quickly as it should in real life, with its crazy energy excursions with thrust vectoring, and a few people have pointed out that is a limitation of DCS, so be it. However, it must be said that the way the developers have made thrust vectoring feel in a lot of instances is extremely believable, and the transitions between thrust vectored flight and conventional flight are so seamless sometimes and so reminiscent of real world videos that it is an absolute testament to the incredible job that they've done. And even if not as realistic, or perhaps a one-to-one representation of the real aircraft, it's so much fun to fly in DCS that it really doesn't matter all that much, although of course I do hope that they can improve on it and get it closer to real life, hopefully with a little bit of feedback. Either way, this is going to be a very interesting fight for both of us, as I think both of us are highly aware of the advantages and disadvantages of thrust vectoring with its incredible nose pointing ability, but at the same time the crazy energy excursions that can result in you becoming a sitting duck. Whether or not that's actually going to be the case here, we'll find out. Alright, here we go into the merge, max thrust.
Перегрузка предельная.
As Rita tells us that we have reached maximum G. I'm flying the Su-30SM variant today with a Thales HUD, the French HUD, which is on both the Russian and the Kazakhstan Air Force aircraft. As we come head to head here, and you'll notice that I am not locking up the Bandit. It's the same thing for my friend. I think it's because the air-to-air version of this aircraft is currently broken, so we're actually flying the air-to-ground Su-30, although the flight dynamics, as far as I understand, are the same. I picked the nose up here. I didn't want to cause an overshoot, so I just wanted to drop down in on top of him, and once again we're having to use the funnel, unable to lock the target. Exactly the same thing for my friends, so it just makes it all the more fun. As we kind of end up in we both want to keep our energy at the same time. You kind of want to know when you have to nose point, so here I could pull the nose up a bit more, which I do, and eventually he does the exact same thing, and I think that's what happens in a lot of fights here. We end up head to head, because as soon as you see one guy trading his energy in and nose pointing, you know that you want to do the exact same thing, because you also want to have an advantage at a shot, and I think that's what's happening all the time. Basically, when one guy does it, the other guy does it as well. It's very difficult to not do it. In here, I'm kind of nose pointing as I'm tail sliding, and the aircraft, as you can see, I actually hit him there on tack view, and I think that was pretty interesting how you could just nose point all the time. As here, I'm pretty much prop hanging, even though the Su-30 obviously doesn't have a prop, or AL-31 hanging, you could say. and we just keep switching places even when you're at the bottom, which is the most vulnerable position in a conventional jet, because you don't have the ability to point the nose up because you don't have enough airspeed. In the Su-30 you can, unless you're at very high altitude, and as you can see I actually took out his nose cone on that pass, so pretty lucky there. It was pretty neutral the entire way. I think probably anybody could have gotten it, and here I damaged him enough where he's unable to nose point anymore. I take out his elevon and he is dead. So it's an interesting thing with the Su-30 where you kind of trying to maintain the energy. Obviously against a conventional 4th gen fighter it could be a little bit different, but because we are flying Su-30 versus Su-30, as soon as you see one guy point his nose, you do the exact same thing, and ends up being a pretty risky one-to-one fight. So we come in for our second fight. Actually, in real life this is the third fight, because the first one I haven't showed you. There was a sort of a break in the flight model, but also some of my incompetence caused me to go do a CFIT, or controlled flight into terrain. And this fight, it didn't last for too long, but I just wanted to show you what becoming a sitting duck and losing all your energy means, which is certainly a consideration flying the real Su-30, I think, for real world pilots, and especially at high altitude where your thrust vectoring abilities are highly limited due to the amount of thrust available compared to the weight of the aircraft. And here I actually didn't put the master arm on, which is why there was a bit of a delay in me trying to shoot there, so I fixed that problem as quickly as I could. But what you'll see here is he does not have the ability to nose point at me with this altitude and that weight, and therefore ends up being a sitting duck. I swoop in on top and blow him out of the sky. Come in for our fourth fight now, where I have to mention a limitation of the current flight model of the Su-30 mod. And both me and my friend agree that it is way too sluggish and there's too much of a delay between pitch inputs and the output of the aircraft. And although, yes, at slow speed, of course, you can expect that, you know, the aircraft will feel very sluggish, it is a case for all speeds, all altitudes, all fuel weights, basically all the time. This airplane is way too sluggish to respond, even to small inputs. Makes it very difficult to fly in close formation, makes it very difficult to have that fine adjustment with, you know, pointing the pipper, well in our case the funnel, onto the Bandit. And it's not a problem in the Su-27 in DCS. It's certainly not a problem in any of the Flaming Cliffs aircraft that we have. So I think that's something the developers need to fix. Now here you'll see I ran out of airspeed. I used my rudder to kick the nose around, which is very cool, but look at the altitude, 4,100 meters. I am a 0 airspeed. I am tail sliding down and I'm losing my ability to nose point because I simply don't have the thrust available at this altitude to do that. And this is the mistake that my friend did in the previous fight, and I am about to repeat exactly what he did.
Борт 1. Пожар правого двигателя. Перекрой кран. Включи огнетушитель.
So Rita is telling us to close up the fuel shutoff valve, I think, and to turn on the fire extinguisher. And this is what happens when you get low and super slow. Okay, abandon ship. Wow, what that? Wow, that. Oof. And into the merge for the last fight of the day.
Перегрузка предельная. Перегрузка предельная.
Unfortunately, my HOTAS cam has died, so you won't be able to see my control inputs like I like showing you guys a lot of the time. So you have to excuse me on that. But this is going to be sort of a conventional start to a fight. At this point we're thinking, okay, we know what it's like losing a lot of energy at high altitude, so trying to sort of maintain a little bit of airspeed there. But when it comes to a thrust vectored versus thrust vectored aircraft, I think inevitably we are going to bleed the energy off, and this is going to turn into some kind of beautiful ballet. Sort of imagine like a Mirage 2000 versus Mirage 2000, but just with crazy nose pointing capability. So my personal opinion is really that the Su-30 would be an absolute monster with missiles, air-to-air missiles at close range. Like now, you could just lock up a bandit, shoot, look to the side, point the nose, kick the rudder, shoot again, rinse and repeat. This thing can carry 4 R-73s under its wing, so that's 4 airplanes potentially could just blast out of the sky. As you can see, since we've learned from our previous mistakes, we're both sort of keeping it, we're not really, I mean, I could pull the nose on him at this point, but I don't. I'm just waiting for a good opportunity and keeping the speed up, and now I think he's given me a bit of an opportunity for a little bit of a snapshot. Unless I really want to nose point a lot, which I decide I do finally, and I just want to follow him. Of course, if we could have the ability to lock up the target in the HUD like you should in real life. As you can see, I mean, he did the typical Su-30 airshow maneuver. He was at a total disadvantage, low, slow, below me, just points the nose back at me, flies up. And although, of course, yes, the flight dynamics may not be 100% reminiscent of real life, and as I'll show you very shortly, they do break down massively occasionally. That certainly is a theme that the real Su-30 can do. When you think it's in a complete disadvantageous position, it can just totally swing it around. And you'll see that in one of Gonki's videos. If you ever watch Gonki, he flew against the Malaysian Su-30MKA. As I have a nice opportunity to shoot his wing off here. Again, I think it was relatively neutral at the beginning of the fight. It just, you know, I managed to just eke out a little bit more out of it at the end. But also the fact that we're missing so many shots is partly due to the fact that A, we can't lock each other up, but also B, because the aircraft is just way, way, way too sluggish to respond to pitch inputs, and that makes it very difficult to aim. There's just too much of a delay between input and what the aircraft does in the end. That's really my biggest complaint for the devs, apart from the stuff that you see on the screen right now, which is one of our first fights where I literally just got accelerated canopy down into the ground where the flight dynamics just broke completely. I just wanted to show this at the end, merely just to demonstrate to the devs that there's definitely some things they need to look at with thrust vectoring. Like here, flying backwards, the aircraft doesn't kill any of its momentum and then starts flying sideways and does something weird. And in here, my friend's aircraft and thrust vectoring looks good, and then look at my airplane out there in the background doing some kind of crazy, like, I don't know what this is. This is definitely not flight dynamics. Now, thankfully, it's not bad enough to ruin any of the fights. In fact, it makes it very fun. Even when that does happen, it makes it exceptionally fun to fight. It's just basically not like real life. But like I said, in a lot of instances, this does behave similar to the real thing, and if you want to check out my videos with flying airshow displays, please make sure to do that, because also that is where I show all the changes that are going to be implemented in the next update with the Su-30 mod and its flight dynamics, which is the flight model that we're using here. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, please make sure to smash the like button, subscribe for future videos, and in the future videos we'll be doing a conventional Su-30 versus conventional 4th gen fighter, and we'll see if I can beat my friend or if he can beat me. So stay tuned.